Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. The first significant snow event of the cold spell is now underway, and you can see that quite clearly by looking at the radar imagery right now across the UK and Ireland. In pink, we are looking at snowfall, green kind of wintry mix, same as the orange, and then in blue we're looking at rain. Now this is the frontal system that we've been speaking about for a few days, and even though the system is now hitting us, the uncertainty is still quite high, and we'll talk more about that later. You can see rain for most of England and Wales at the moment, with the mild air in place on the kind of south side of this front. But as the precipitation is bumping into the cold air on the north, we're starting to see snow develop. And actually, areas across northern England and just about into the North Midlands there, as well as North Wales and parts of Northern Ireland, are seeing snow, and actually fairly heavy snow across parts of northern England, Sheffield up towards Leeds, York, Stoke-on-Trent, Bradford, and into parts of the kind of eastern Manchester area right now, as you can see. So snow already occurring. I've seen some quite nice videos on Twitter, and we're likely to see this threat continuing overnight and into tomorrow. This is the snowfall graphic I made for this low, and you can see valid from 6 PM until 3 PM tomorrow. Areas in white are likely to see falling snow. It's possible some areas in this zone will see some accumulation, but probably less likely than other areas. Having said that, though, maybe some of these areas here across parts of northern England up to northwest England seeing some fairly heavy snow already. In particular across the Lake District, probably underestimated the extent of the snow there as this kind of band of heavier precipitation pushes in. But you can see the extent is roughly correct, and that's going to not move any further north during the next 24 hours or so. These zones in light blue, where we could see some accumulation, 1 to 3 centimetres generally. Some zones across parts of Ireland, possibly across parts of Northern Ireland tonight, and also maybe across this area of Central and Western Ireland. Sorry. And then the kind of more larger zone is across Wales, the Midlands, and into Northern England, where we could see some fairly widespread accumulations. And actually, as it occurs into rush hour, could be some disruption as well. But still note there is a lot of uncertainty whether we see 1 or 2 rounds of snow. And that's going to influence the kind of position and depth of the snow as well. I'll talk more about that just in a tiny bit. The areas in darker blue and purple is where the risk of snow is currently highest. Potentially some decent accumulations there, 3 to 7 centimetres, locally more, especially in this sort of area here in between. And then the highest confidence of significant snow is basically across the high ground, North Wales and the East Pennines, where we could see 7 centimetres or more. If I had to say, probably the theoretical peak, some areas in this sort of zone are likely to see 15 centimetres or so, not everywhere. Similarly, some areas in this darker blue zone may see 10 centimetres. It's hard to say, but generally, if you're in this region, you're going to see snow tomorrow, and it could be fairly significant. Especially for the time of year, mid-November, we don't often get snow. However, there is significant uncertainty about whether we see 1 round or 2. We currently have this band of rain pushing in, and this is going to already, as we're seeing, overnight turn to snow, with the kind of boundary being the North Midlands. Most models agree on this, but there is slight uncertainty if we could see a second push into the more South Midlands and Wales during tomorrow morning. The models such as the Arpegge and the Arome are a lot more kind of aggressive on this. They show it to be fairly heavy, as you see there. So potentially the overlap region where we have snow risk number 1 and snow risk number 2, this zone here is probably likely to see the highest accumulations, hence this outlook there. But you can see in terms of what this model is showing, don't take this too literally, but a fairly decent accumulation across a fairly wide area. But this is kind of my current thinking. In terms of whether we do see this second round develop properly, well, here's our low on the current satellite imagery, just sliding to the southeast with the kind of winter precipitation on the northern side. But you can see in this darker patch, we've got a little bit of spin off to the north. That's currently an area of kind of shallow convection and a low. We also have a very slight shortwave trough here, which is likely going to create some vertical motion, and so we probably are, in my opinion, going to see a fairly significant second round. So pushing into the Midlands tomorrow during the morning, I think that seems quite likely. Probably a scenario similar to wrong chart, similar to this heavy snow across the Midlands. A bit of uncertainty how far east it gets. Could get slightly further east and could taper off to around the Chilterns, but probably not further south than that, though nothing can be ruled out. Sorry, I've got a bit of a cough at the moment, but you can see this general graphic is kind of giving you the general areas at risk. However, we've got further snow risks into next week. I'm just going to have a quick sip of water. We've got further snow risks into next week. The highest confidence one is currently the shower risk. So that's across Northern Ireland, the west coast of Ireland, and much of Scotland. The kind of blue colour indicates a more likely risk of snow, whereas the white is a just risk of falling snow, at least it's possible. We've talked a lot, though, about how the temperature contrast is going to drive the shower risk. The difference in the sea surface temperature and the upper air temperature creates instability and lets those showers develop. And that's essentially a given in this kind of flow, northwesterly. This time of year, the oceans are still relatively warm compared to maybe January or February, and the upper air temperatures are very cold still. So keep an eye on this region here, and just notice how much snow piles in when we run through this loop. Don't focus on areas further south, we'll come to those shortly. But if I go through this loop, you can see snow showers start tonight and tomorrow, and they just really, number one, are very persistent and also fairly intense as well, especially you can see on Thursday towards the end of the week. And if we take a look at the snow depths, the UKV is currently suggesting widely 10 centimetres across northern Scotland, and in some places 40 to 50, and that seems entirely possible, especially across high ground, but really anywhere I could see quite a lot of snow in Scotland, as you can see here. And in general, the models underestimate how far these showers get inland, so it could be areas further south too. Basically, a lot of Scotland is at risk, though the Highlands will break up some of that snow, obviously. So that's kind of this risk covered, and that's going to really last through the whole week, as you can see there. The next one to watch is also potentially showers along the east coast. Now this is a fairly low risk, but still worth mentioning, and that essentially develops if we get any. Let's take a look at the GFS here. If we get any of these showers, if the flow is kind of northeasterly, which it might just about be, we could see some of these showers scraping the east coast, but the high-res models are not particularly aggressive on that at the minute. I just think it's a somewhat likely solution. You can see arpegge a bit more there. Probably not significant accumulations, but still could definitely be something to look out for along the east coast there. Then we turn to kind of Tuesday to Friday. This has the potential to, aside from Scotland, be, in my opinion, the highest or most prolific snow risk. And we can take a look at why. And this is the potential for organised snow showers across parts of Wales into northwest England. And we can zoom in here and take a look at the arpegge model. So it doesn't seem to be showing a lot, but essentially the same way that showers develop across the ocean into Scotland due to temperature difference, we have the same effect here, except the showers are aided by the topography, which essentially creates sort of convergence, because it kind of funnels the wind right into the Cheshire Gap, and you get convergence along this zone, and that essentially, just like how convergence helps thunderstorms to form, basically builds in showers into this region. And very often in the past, we've got a organised band of snow into northwest England, extending into the Midlands. Historically, in the best cases, they've gone even further south, and that's fairly rare. And I think the models are indicating quite strongly with the northwesterly wind that that's going to happen again. And like I said, these models underdo the convection. But if we take a look at the UKV, you can see that does develop onto across northwest England and the Midlands on Wednesday. But really the risk is from Tuesday until Thursday, in my opinion. Hence the kind of blue area here. That risk will also extend down into Wales, as you can see on the models. So potentially we could be seeing a fair few centimetres of snow from that risk across northwest England. You know, the models probably aren't going to pick up on the full scale of the threat until fairly late, but I really wouldn't be surprised to see 5 centimetres or more in some of these regions across northwest England and Wales, potentially down into parts of Cornwall and the far southwest too. So that's another snow risk to look out for. Could also penetrate into the Midlands, forgot to mention that. Now there's one kind of low confidence risk, and that is some of the models, especially the European model, still is trying to develop a snow threat across parts of southwest Ireland and southwest England on Thursday, and that's in association with this low. However, all of the models themselves actually think the low is going to go well to the south of us, as you can see here. That's the low going to France. Some models, however, develop a area of convection early on, which you can see is here. This area of convection, which then kind of merges with the frontal band to produce its own band of snow across the south. If this were to happen, it would be pretty significant. As you can see here, the chart is forecasting like 10 centimeters, 15 centimeters across Southwest Ireland and Southwest England there. And some models actually, such as the UK Met Office model, if we take a look here, the UK Met Office model also shows that, I mean, even into southern England there on Thursday. So that's something to look out for, but it's very, very unlikely in my opinion, just because the UK Met Office model is the only one showing that into southern England, and the European is really the only one showing it into Southwest Ireland. If you take a look at the GFS, you can see it's well into France there, slides down and brings snow to central France. And if we take a look on the ensembles, the storm tracks, you can see, yeah, number one, it's weak, and number two, you can see it's fairly far to the south. However, the UK Met Office ensemble, interestingly enough, does seem to have a fairly significant number, more than I would have thought, showing that risk. Oh, actually, I say that, the new one's just come out, and the number which had it are a lot lower. There's still a couple here, but if you go to the 6 o'clock one, and you go to the snow depth chart, you can see there was some quite unusual ones, big snow events there, for, in my opinion, not much reason. So I think the snow risk across the south on Thursday from that low, in my opinion, is close to zero. But I'm just mentioning it because some models are kind of struggling to let that go in a sense. But I personally think there's not much to worry about. Though maybe it's worth watching for the far southwest tips of Ireland and southwest England. The other one to talk about is the risk of low pressure disturbances through the kind of central half of the country. This is probably the best chance if you're in the southeast of England, something to look out for. But the models have been fairly insistent for a while now that we're going to get a fairly significant upper shortwave trough moving through on Thursday, late in the day, starting across Scotland and translating further south. Now, I've been saying this for a while, but the models do really struggle to pick these up and resolve them. So essentially, we're probably not going to find out until Wednesday if there's going to be a proper threat. And even in the past, we've had these coming down, and the models have showed nothing. That's November 2021. So uncertainty is really high. I am relatively optimistic because I do think we're going to potentially get a shortwave trough developing convection, and it kind of merges into its own low. And that's actually what the GFS has here, which is this kind of small disturbance. Small, but probably would pack a fairly significant punch with a short spell of heavy snow, maybe bringing a dusting. So that's this general region to look out for, and that's going to be on Thursday. So really, I said this in a past video and said this is kind of a bold statement, but I think a lot of the UK is going to see falling snow during this week, and I think it's playing out to be not totally far from the truth, especially across northern and western areas. We're going to see snow, Ireland as well. But potentially even areas which were not obvious initially could see snow as well. And then, of course, this graphic doesn't take into account the snow risk across the Midlands today. So, especially for November, I'm not complaining. This is a fairly decent snowy period. But having said that, things are going to come to a close on Saturday. Potentially, we're going to see significant snow on Saturday across a very large area, potentially a lot of England and Ireland. However, it's pointless because it is going to get washed away immediately because it's going to be followed by heavy rain. And actually, on Saturday, we're potentially looking at a fairly deep low moving through. A fair amount of model uncertainty, but if we look at the storm tracks, if it's going to load, that is. Yeah, there you go. You can see quite a few bright colours indicating the possibility of some pretty strong winds and heavy rain. If we take a look at the wind gusts, GFS has, across a large part, strong 50 to 60 mile an hour wind gusts, and quite a long time as well, potentially score line across the southeast, so that we'll have to look in details later. And this forecast will change a lot, but just worth noting, potentially a deep and maybe significant storm on Saturday as the cold is broken down, potentially even a named storm. I wouldn't be surprised. Quite a few models are going for something quite strong. you can see the icon there as well. So overall, quite a busy week of weather. Initially, snow for quite a large region. This is the main one for now, though we've got the risk of snow showers, obviously across Scotland. Yeah. And then the risk of further features and also across northwest England and Wales, could be seeing some significant snow there. Now, if you're worried about the return to mild, I'm not going to give away too much right now because I need to look into it in more detail, but potentially the end of as we enter kind of December and towards the middle of December, we could be seeing the return of high pressure. So maybe, depending on how things go, we could be seeing an increased risk of cold, though things are very, very far away. So don't lose hope if you're a fan of cold weather. But at least for now, from Saturday into December, things turning mild and unsettled, but before that, snow. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, everyone, and have a great day. Bye-bye.